Hello, everyone, and welcome to Go Ahead Tell Me. My name is Carly, and continuing with our goal to bring you conversations with positive changemakers, today we are talking with director and filmmaker Tayo Amos. We're so excited to have you here, Tayo. Would you like to start by telling us a bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. My name is Tayo Amos. I'm originally from the Bay Area. My parents immigrated from Nigeria and settled down there. So I'm one of six kids growing up there. Yeah, which was fun. And, growing up, I would just make, music videos with my friends and my family. It was fun. And I always just thought of filmmaking as a hobby. Didn't really take it seriously because, I didn't really know anyone who did it for a living. And, especially being the child of immigrant parents, they want you to be in a more secure path. So, I just always thought of filmmaking as, a creative outlet, kept doing it in high school, where I made, short docs, some music videos. And then in college, I didn't study film, but I kept making music videos for friends and contests. And I did a documentary for my a cappella group. And I think the thing that really, the decision that kind of felt like the fork in the road was my junior year summer. I had the opportunity to either be an intern at a bank or some sort of financial internship, or make a documentary with a grant from my school, Stanford.
Oh, wow.
And I chose to do the grant in London, even though I had no idea what I was doing. But it was a really, kind of pivotal decision for me, in that, nothing really came of the documentary, but the process of making it and just, choosing to, focus on that creative side of myself was really wonderful. And my senior year of college, I had the opportunity to be a presenter at the Academy Awards through the program Team Oscar. And so that experience was really kind of my first introduction to Hollywood. I've always watched the Oscars growing up, loved watching movies growing up, as well as the Academy Awards, and just being there, seeing these people I look up to in the industry, and just realizing that, they're just people too, obviously very talented people, but, it just made the industry feel more tangible. So after I graduated college, I decided to do a year of traveling, basically a gap year, and then moved back to the Bay Area, did some freelance work. And then I decided to go to film school to really hone in on my craft as a filmmaker. So I went to USC, and there I made a lot of crappy films, and then emerged with a thesis film called On the Clock that has become my calling card. It got me signed to an agent, it's now on Amazon Prime, and it just really kind of showcased my work as a director, made me feel more confident in my directing process. So since then, I've done 2 more shorts, and developing a couple feature projects. And yeah, it's been a journey, and it's still going, of course, but that's me.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. I have to ask, what part of the Bay Area are you from?
I was born at Stanford, grew up in basically Palo Alto, Mountain View. My family was around the peninsula, primarily like Santa Clara. We lived between like Mountain View to Santa Clara, so like basically the peninsula area.
Gotcha. Okay, I grew up in San Jose and have been all over. So.
Okay, all right. People are like, "Oh, you're from the Bay? Must be from Oakland?" And I'm like, "Nah,
no.
I'm not. I'm from the boring white part."
Yep, that's where I'm from as well.
Yeah.
I went to Berkeley though too, so I'm.
Okay. So we're rivals because I went to Stanford, so we hate
exactly. Definitely rivals, but we'll forget that for today.
It's all good. Right? We're friends. It's not that deep.
Exactly. But it's good to talk from the Bay Area. I moved down to San Diego. Now it's been like 4 or 5 years, so
wow.
It's always nice to talk to somebody who knows the area.
Yeah, it's a bizarre place, and I'm actually working on a feature about my experience inspired by my time going to a predominantly white prep school in Palo Alto and dealing with the pressure of getting into a top school as a young person, and just navigating that, as well as being, one of the few Black girls, one of the like lower income students there. And just fictionalizing that experience to something that I would have loved to see as a young person growing up.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds like a really special project for sure.
Yeah.
And you said that's a feature?
Yeah, it's called Elite. I've been working on it for, it's a journey. I think I wrote the first draft in 2017. So we're, been developing the script, and, who knows, it's a process, but hopefully it gets made sooner rather than later.
Yeah, definitely. That will definitely be on my list of things to watch out for.
Yeah, it's about a senior who joins a cheating ring to get into Harvard. So,
oh wow,
yeah, it's a fun one, but like
that does sound fun.
Dark. It's not a comedy.
Yeah. No, I didn't. Definitely not.
Yeah.
The darker, I guess, the better sometimes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The more fun.
Yeah.
So I was looking at all your work, right? Like I saw the Elite one come up. And then you have one that's going to be in festivals this year. Is that right?
Yeah. So there's two shorts that are kind of in the festival circuit. One is A Blossom in the Night. We had our virtual premiere at Urban World. Was a bummer to not be there in person, but they did a great virtual festival. And we'll be at New Filmmakers LA this weekend, and have a couple other festivals on the pipeline, and then another short I directed. It's not official yet, but I guess I can say, I don't know if I can say it. I won't say it because it's not official yet, but it's gonna have its premiere soon, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, that's exciting. And no worries not having to say it. I get that for sure.
I just I don't know, can they sue me? I don't know, but
definitely don't want to risk that.
Yeah, I don't know.
How has it been though, navigating festivals and directing and things through the pandemic? I can imagine that's been a very different journey.
Yeah, it's weird. I feel like, especially now that we're going into almost a year of this nonsense, I feel like, luckily for me, I was able to, basically have a COVID artist residency. Right before COVID hit, I left my assistant job, not because of COVID, but it just was the timing of it all. And COVID hit, and I was just well, I'm just gonna, hunker down and write some scripts and work on my films. Fortunately, all the films I was working on had already shot, so it was really all post-production work. So that we can do remotely. We did our sound mix for one of my shorts with our masks on, we're at the mixing stage with our masks on. So, I was able to basically collect unemployment and just kind of survive for a couple months, just kind of doing that. And then have basically started another remote job while also continuing my own directing project. So it's been a dance for sure. This job is focused more on development. So I definitely feel like I'm getting a kind of virtual business school in that sense, where I'm learning a lot about different executives and pitches and how to, pitch over Zoom, which is nuts. I
can imagine.
Yeah. And I feel like, especially now that COVID has become part of our daily lives, just seeing how people are doing productions during COVID, the fact that there's a new department head called the COVID compliance officer, and,
oh my goodness,
out the protocol for purchasing PPE and testing, I feel like is become necessary the longer this has gone on. So, so I was fortunate to have I shot a short 2 months ago during COVID, which was nuts. But it felt good to create even amidst the chaos. I guess it was my way of, feeling okay, I have some control over my life and I can still create even though the elements are changing and are against us kind of. But yeah, so it's still, you know, there's still ways to be creative. You just have to think a bit more outside the box and prioritize people's safety and don't do anything stupid.
Yes, definitely. I can imagine though, like getting back on set, like having a little bit of normalcy, even though it's not completely normal, but I bet that felt really great to finally get there and get to do something that you love after this crazy year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going back kind of to how you spoke about your like dream for film and or like being involved in the film industry and your parents being immigrants and things like that, what inspired you like to, I know you said the presenting at the Oscars was part of it, but what really was your inspiration behind it? What was your motivation really to get into film?
Yeah, I think just the creative side of it all. I think I'm always thinking about stories I want to tell, and I'm a very visual person. And so I naturally gravitated towards filmmaking as an art form because I'm just a very visual person and I'm very much an extrovert. So I love like talking to people and just being like, hey, like let's do something. And so I think that's what I love about filmmaking is that it's a, you know, a community art form. Like you can make a film by yourself, but that's really hard. So yeah, I really love the collaborative aspect of it and how you can just really like bring people together. And then in terms of the industry, I mean, there's all these, you know, I definitely thought about representation growing up. And, you know, I think, you know, growing up in an area where, you know, you are the minority and you are not used to seeing images of yourself. And just when you do see, you know, a character or person that looks like you, like it's really affirming in ways that feels kind of ridiculous because you're like, oh, it's just like a cartoon. Like, why am I like emotional seeing a cartoon character or something like that? But when it's, you know, so sparse and, you know, you don't have much, it's, you know, really important to have. And I think just having those mirrors representation is something I'm really passionate about. And I am of the firm belief that, you know, films can really influence people's mindsets and behaviors. And so I think of filmmaking as a way to, yeah, and contribute to the way we tell stories about ourselves and about each other. And especially being from, you know, Palo Alto as a child of immigrants, you know, there's not one way of being Black. Like there's a lot of wonderful Black films and stories, but like I don't know what it's like to, you know, be in extreme poverty or, you know, have to deal with drugs or anything like that, which is awful and obviously a very real reality for a lot of people. But, you know, what's the reality of, you know, trying to navigate a white high school? Like, how do you deal with that? Like, and I think that there's more and more of that. And so I'm glad that it's not necessarily like, there are shows like literally in that case, like All American, that's a show about, you know, a Black athlete trying to navigate a white school. So I'm like, cool, that exists. But it's like, okay, what about the girls in that show, the Black women on that show? I don't know. So, you know, I feel like there's always room for more nuance and different perspectives. Yeah.
Yeah, when you mentioned for Elite, you mentioned that it was something that like you wish you would have had on TV when you were growing up. I thought that was interesting, and I think that's something that we're seeing more and more of today, hopefully, like that we're seeing these stories that we didn't have 10, 15 years ago, and people are sharing their stories and having their voices heard, which I think is really important. So like I said, I'm excited to see that feature. So is there anybody in particular that you looked up to as a kid? Like you said, there wasn't stories that were necessarily relatable for you, but was there anybody that you felt was taking that step in that direction when you were growing up?
Yeah. I guess filmmakers I look up to, like, I mean, it's funny because like the movies that I first gravitated towards were not, you know, written by necessarily all Black directors. I think like the filmmaker that really made me believe in the power of filmmaking was Christopher Nolan. And I feel like that dude, I was like, oh my God, this guy's incredible. Like, holy crap. The way he, you know, is able to bend time and space in ways, like, I just felt like when I saw his movies for the first time, I was really, you know, intrigued by the art form itself. So he is one person I look up to in the industry. But in terms of, you know, someone who I felt like, oh, like this is actually possible as a career, I think definitely Ava DuVernay when she first won Sundance's Best Director Award. She was the first Black woman to do that. And that was my that was my senior year of college. And I think seeing that in terms of her directing style, like, I mean, I love her movies, but I wouldn't say that I'm trying to emulate her style per se, but I definitely saw her trajectory as, okay, like that whole cliched phrase of like, if you can see it, you can be it. You know, just seeing this Black woman having that, you know, pedigree happen for her was crucial for me in a place in my life where, you know, I knew I wanted to make films. I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker, but I didn't quite know how to go about it. And of course, there's a number of other Black women directors that, you know, have made their marks in a lot of different ways, like Yuzan Palsy and Julie Dash. But, you know, it's hard to see Black women directors have, you know, a sustained career. And I think Ava DuVernay is really the flagship Black woman director that, you know, built this career and is still building this career in a way that's really empowering to watch.
Right. Yeah, 100%. Thank you for sharing that with us. And then the other question I had for you was, while I was reading or looking at your work, A Blossom in the Night, that story is very intriguing to me. So can you explain a little bit about that? It's like, is it, it's like modern day slavery, right? And they're trying to escape that. Is that right?
Yeah. So it's this world in the future where because resources have become depleted, society basically divided itself into 3 tiers based on income. And based on your income level, it basically establishes what status you are in society. So lower income people, who are mostly pretty much all Black and brown people, are basically forced back into forced labor, basically, or slavery. And so the characters we're following is Amara. She's this young, bright Black woman who is, you know, currently running on the run with her brother Donovan as they're trying to, you know, escape this really restrictive society. But Amara still feels like her father, who was, even though we don't see him in the film, was lost, was missing during some riots. And so she's trying to figure out how to get to him. And when she has a clue that maybe he's still alive or that he's still out there, she's torn because, you know, her brother and her are making good progress to freedom, but she also wants to find her father. So the short is pretty much her grappling with that decision.
Wow. And that's on Amazon Prime, correct?
So no, not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
That is still in the festival circuit. I'm hoping to get it on a platform, whether it's Amazon Prime or YouTube or something soon. But my thesis film, On the Clock, is on Amazon Prime. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. I was like wanting to watch that one when I saw it, but I wasn't able to find it. But so you're working on getting on a platform after festivals, I'm assuming.
Yeah. So we'll be at New Filmmakers LA this Friday, and we have some other festivals coming up, like Halifax Black Film Festival, just like a bunch of really wonderful, you know, regional festivals that are somehow still making festivals happen during COVID, which is a feat in and of itself. So
yeah, that's going to be an experience, I'm sure, during COVID.
yeah, 100%.
So a lot of your work, obviously the reason we brought you on here is because of all of your work is very inspiring and tackles these topics that are so important to the world we live in right now, what we've been going through in the last year even. What's something that you want your audiences to get out of your work?
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing is just seeing more beautiful Black and brown faces in different roles that that we don't expect of them, or that we haven't really seen before. And opening a new point of view and a new perspective. And I hope that my work elicits a greater deal of empathy for people, especially in situations. And I feel like COVID has amplified this even more, where, it's so much of circumstances that we can't control that, put us in situations that we don't want to be in. And I think of course, we're not perfect, but there's oftentimes, we make decisions based off circumstances that are outside of our control, and just, being more empathetic to that, and then hopefully actually doing something to change that circumstance. So yeah, I think just the coupling of, or not coupling, there's a lot of things, but mainly, seeing different faces, different voices in a way that inspires empathy and action in other people.
I love that. Definitely need more of that in our world.
Absolutely, yes, everywhere.
Yes, 100%. And then before we go, we've been talking to people all month, and I did just want to ask your thoughts on Black History Month. If there's anything in particular that you're doing or you hope to see the world doing this month.
Yeah. Man, this is a tough one. I feel like, I think there's a lot of great conversations about diversity and inclusion and representation. But I think for this Black History Month, just really thinking about kind of like trying to think more how your actions are, how everything is connected. Like I like to think of racism like the Matrix a little bit. Like it's so easy to just go through life and just be like, oh, like this is life, like this is how everything goes. But when you actually look at everything through a perspective of systematic oppression, and you realize, okay, wow, like everything is connected. Once you take that, what was it, red pill or whatever, once you really see, the systems of like systematic oppression, how it literally affects everything we do. Like when people say, oh, you make everything about race. And it's like, listen, we don't want to make everything about race, but that's just the way it is. Like I'm reading all these stories about, people's homes being appraised for lower value because they are Black, and they, they only get their homes valued higher until like either they pose as white, or they put pictures up saying that imply that the home is owned by a white person. So we're thinking like, oh, wow, like it's hard for Black women or Black people to acquire wealth because of, the whole system is, incentivized to keep Black people down. So it can be a little overwhelming, but I think, just kind of starting to see just in little things that you do, or who you interact with, or where you are, especially in the film industry. I think the industry has to understand that, like, okay, yes, we have all these great stories and Black creators, but when you actually look at who's greenlighting these projects, it's still all white people.
Right.
And I'm just like, oh man, like who owns the stories we're telling? Like who's actually like profiting off of the stories we're telling? It's like, dang, okay, like that's, what do we do with that? So I think, yes, for this Black History Month, I think it's important to, celebrate and revel in Black work and Black art and Black people. But I think it's also an important time, not just this month, but year round, to really question and interrogate, okay, what are the systems in place that I benefit from? And how can I, by little actions, kind of do my part in kind of dismantling that? And it feels crazy to say, because like, oh, like be anti-racist. But it's like, okay, yeah, how can you
so much more?
Yeah. And just having that, hard conversations and really understanding like, okay, how can I, do my part to dismantle systems, as opposed to just being like, oh, like racism is bad. Okay, yes. then now what? You know what I'm saying?
Right. Go deeper, go to the next level.
Exactly. And,
to make a change in that. Yeah, I thank you. That was it's
a loaded
I've never
answer,
thought about it like that. Exactly. It's a loaded question, and I feel like it's even more like this year, after everything we've seen and been through, like there's so much more to it that I don't think a lot of people realize. And so your words and sharing that, I hope that it gets to everyone who listens to this, understands that and takes it to heart and lives their day-to-day with that in their mind.
Yeah, and it's a lot, but the good thing is, like, I feel like, I love being Black. It's just like there's so much diversity in our cultures, in our points of view, in our experiences, and even with all the trauma and persecution, like I got kind of emotional. Like last week, I was at a store and I was buying, obviously with my mask on, like takeout, but I was buying some food, and I was like, wow, like literally just 50 years ago, I would be denied service here. Like 50 years ago, they would be like, no, can't, you're Black. That's wild to me. You know what I'm saying? So I think, I don't know. I think there's moments where we're like, oh, like, I don't know. There's a part of me that's like, yes, there's a lot more to do, but there's a part of me that's like, wow, like, if we really understand where we came from, like, okay, like, I'm grateful that we're in this time now. Like, we still have a long way to go, but dang. Like,
I think about that all the time too. I mean, like growing up in the Bay Area, I feel like I was so lucky to be in such a diverse community. Like I don't know, I just look at that area compared to where I live now, and as a kid being in that environment and so many different cultures surrounding me. Like you go to San Francisco and there's just every culture is all around you. And I forget sometimes that that's not how the rest of the country or the world lives, that like not everybody is surrounded by different cultures all the time. And so it's such a like awakening to realize like, oh, right, I lived in just this small little area and I felt like I was in a very diverse community, but look at the whole rest of this country that's not that way. Like my brother lives in Oklahoma and I go there and it's like a whole nother world.
Oh, I bet. Oh, wow.
Like, what is this? Like, this is not what I'm used to. It's really interesting to think about all the different ways people live, and we're stuck in our own little bubbles almost.
Yeah.
Well,
and that's why I like filmmaking, because it hopefully brings people closer together and see other people's perspectives. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me today and taking the time to discuss your work. And I will be on the lookout for your next projects, and best of luck through this festival season and navigating it through COVID.
Yeah. Thank goodness we have the internet. No, I gotta give a shout out to festival programmers. They're really doing their best to get filmmakers the platform even during this time, and there's been a lot of cool apps and platforms that people have been using. So it gives me hope that people are still finding ways to showcase films, and hopefully we'll find a way to see them all in person soon.
Yes. Well, hopefully soon. Fingers crossed.
Yes, fingers crossed.
Well, thank you again. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, same here. Have a good one.
I hope you all enjoyed this episode. You can watch Tayo's film On the Clock on Amazon Prime now, or follow her on Instagram for updates on her next films, including A Blossom in the Night. Keep up with Go Ahead Tell Me by following us on Instagram or visiting our website to sign up for our weekly newsletter. Thank you all for listening, and we'll talk soon.